We're now in the natural preserve. Most of the park here is natural preserve. It's an area where we have limited access to people who work here, people who are on our guided tours, and researchers who have a permit that allows them access to this area. We not only have paleontologists coming out here, we also have people coming out here to study rattlesnakes, bats, moths, and butterflies.
Wow, this place is beautiful. Look at that. Wow.
Once again, there's Centrosaurus. And this area looked very different back in the late Cretaceous 75 million years ago when Centrosaurus was wandering around these parts. Looking around here, there was a shallow seaway cutting the continent in two, connecting the Arctic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. And then this one here is a dinosaur fossil. It's fully mineralized. It's a backbone of a duck-billed dinosaur. You can see so the fossils here at Dinosaur Provincial Park range in color from a dark brown to a light kind of creamy color, depending on how long they've been exposed.
What's that yellow? The yellow in here.
Oh, that's lichen. It's a symbiotic relationship between algae and fungus. The geologic formation that where we find most of the fossils here at Dinosaur Provincial Park, called the Dinosaur Park Formation. At the time, there were lots of rivers flowing down off the Rocky Mountains, bringing sediment. There were slow meandering rivers, and so there was ample opportunity for dinosaur remains to be buried in that sediment so they could become fossilized. Today, it's exposed at the surface, but this formation doesn't just exist here. It extends for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. Welcome to the bonebed. You hear somebody talking about the Centrosaurus Bonebed. Good chance they're talking about this one. This is one of 22 Centrosaurus Bonebeds that we have here at Dinosaur Provincial Park, though. It's an area that most certainly would have been known about by the Blackfoot people who have been coming to this area for over 4,500 years. But the earliest evidence that we have of it being found by fossil hunters and paleontologists is this old field photograph from a Royal Ontario Museum expedition. You can see there's a guy sitting up on the citadel there.
Yeah.
So maybe what is okay for him to get up there then, but 100 years of erosion since then, so it's not safe to get up there, so we won't be climbing up on the citadel today.
Oh dear.
But in those days, they were looking for really nice museum specimens, complete skeletons, really showy things like this Gorgosaurus jaw. The Gorgosaurus was the smaller cousin of Tyrannosaurus rex that was living here, that would have been feeding on Centrosaurus.
And what year was that?
This one is 1921.
Wow.
100 years, almost.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So this Royal Ontario Museum crew would have come to this spot, had seen bones sticking out from the edge here, and went, yeah, there's a whole bunch of bones here, but they seem to be just scattered, and that's not what we're after. So they would have moved on to work on other areas. May or may not have even mentioned it in their field notes for the day. Then this site was rediscovered by park interpreters in the late 1970s.
70s.
Yeah. And there'd been a bit of a change in the scientific thinking, and there was an appreciation of the sorts of information you can learn from looking at a bone bed. Things like how the animals changed as they grew. There was a small Centrosaurian dinosaur called Monoclonius, and it was found from doing work in bone beds like these that Monoclonius was actually just a juvenile Centrosaurus. It was not a different kind of dinosaur, just a teenager. So the Tyrrell Museum hadn't been built yet, so all the paleontology was still up at the Provincial Museum of Alberta. And the park interpreters reported it to the paleontologists, and they came out here and worked this site for about a decade. They collected lots and lots of material. And then once they collected as much as they felt they needed to, they uncovered an area here for us to have to show people. And I'm going to do some digging to get the rails clear so I can slide the lid back. So you'll be able to see that in a bit. So as you'll see, it's not a bunch of articulated skeletons like these where all the bones are all connected as they should if the animal was alive. It's a big jumble. You can kind of see a little bit of hint of it here. Big jumble where you've got, an ischium, a pelvic bone that's next to a rib, that's next to a bed of frill, all just sort of jumbled up. Yet we know that there are over 200 individuals represented from this bone bed. It would have been about the size of a football field. Does anybody know how we are able to determine the number of individuals that have been found in a bone bed, even though it's a big jumble and not really nice articulated skeletons?
DNA.
I don't know how many times specific bone repeats itself, right?
Exactly, yeah. So in this case,
You're right. He's smarter than you think.
there's a bone called the occipital condyle. It's very distinctive. Every dinosaur only has one. There's some right at the back of the skull. It articulated with the first vertebra and allowed the head to move around.
It's like a ball.
That. And it ossified really well in adult individuals. So they found 57 occipital condyles from this bone bed. So at least 57 adults represented. And it's not really ossified in... What's that?
It's like a ball joint.
Not really well ossified in anything that wasn't fully adult. So for that, they would have taken a look and counted all, say, the left femurs from all the non-adult sized Centrosaurus. Because unless something really weird happened, every dinosaur should only have one left femur. We hope. Right?
Both want to go out there?
Another 20 feet. Just getting careful. Yeah. I just renewed it this morning.
A new policy? A new policy.
So this is part of the original excavation?
Yeah. It's a representative sample of the bone bed. Left here for display purposes.
And it is important to cover it.
So this right here, it's a rib. This one and that one. There's a pelvic bone called an ischium, so it's that curved one. It's a paired bone that curves out underneath the tail. There. And then here between the ischium and the rib, that's a bit of the frill, a bit of the shield off the back of the skull. Anybody know what that piece is that's up, sitting up on the surface right here?
Part of a horn.
Yeah, it's a horn. And a bony core on their nasal horn, kind of like what you see in a cow or a bison. There would have been a keratin sheath over top. It had this big horn wandering around. As I mentioned, sometimes it was straight, sometimes it curved forward, sometimes it curved back. And so far it just seems like it's for display rather than any other purpose.
Good, Russell.
There's the picture there.
Looks pretty big.
Yeah. Oh, that's the one I found earlier, isn't it? Yeah. I don't know what it is, but
What is that?
some kind of leg bone.
This bone right here is a femur, it's upper leg bone in Centrosaurus.
Really, that big?
And you can see on the dark part here where there's all sorts of different patterning on it. After the animals died and the bones were buried in the ground, plants sending their roots down, the plants encountered the bone and extracted minerals out of the bone. So those are called root etchings. You get a little bit of different mineral composition. Before we head out of the natural preserve here, I just wanted to stop and thank you all for joining me this morning. Hope you enjoyed that. Enjoys the rest of their time at Dinosaur Park.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.